This historical secret was buried for centuries. The shovel hit something solid 6 feet down, and Professor Elena Martinez knew immediately that her career was about to change forever, or end in complete disgrace. She'd been digging in the wrong place. Everyone said so. The historical records clearly indicated that the lost workshop of Leonardo da Vinci's mysterious apprentice was 3 miles east, near the old cathedral ruins. But Elena had found a reference in an obscure margin note, barely legible, that suggested otherwise. Against the advice of her colleagues, the protests of her graduate students, and the skepticism of her funding committee, she'd obtained permission to excavate this forgotten corner of a Tuscan olive grove. Now, as morning sunlight filtered through ancient trees, her shovel scraped against what sounded like wood. "Dr. Martinez," called James, her most loyal student, peering down into the excavation pit. "Is that? Help me clear the soil," Elena said, her voice tight with controlled excitement. They worked carefully, brushing away centuries of earth to reveal a wooden chest bound with iron. The metal had rusted, but the box itself remained remarkably intact, preserved by the clay-rich soil. Elena's hands trembled as she photographed every angle, documented every measurement. Whatever was inside, it had been deliberately hidden. The lock crumbled at the first touch of her tools. Elena lifted the lid, and her breath caught. Inside lay dozens of notebooks, their leather covers worn but still whole. And beside them, wrapped in oilcloth that had somehow survived 500 years, was a single painting no larger than her hand. James gasped. "Is that a Da Vinci?" "No," Elena whispered, carefully lifting the small portrait. "It's better than that." The painting showed a young woman with intelligent eyes and paint-stained fingers, holding a brush. In the background, barely visible, was the blurred figure of an older man, Leonardo himself, perhaps. But what made Elena's heart race wasn't the painting's beauty. It was the signature in the corner, Caterina di Marco, 1503. "I don't understand," James said. "Who is Caterina di Marco?" Elena was already opening the first notebook, her eyes scanning the elegant Italian script. "The secret that was buried for centuries," she said softly. "The apprentice wasn't a man. It was a woman." Over the next 3 days, as the excavation team worked to safely transport the chest to the university, Elena barely slept. She sat in the climate-controlled tent, reading by lamplight, and with each page, a story emerged that rewrote everything historians thought they knew about the Renaissance. Caterina di Marco had been the daughter of a wealthy Florentine merchant. Gifted in art from childhood, she'd been denied formal training because of her gender. So she'd done the unthinkable, disguised herself as her own fictional younger brother, Marco di Marco, and apprenticed herself to Leonardo da Vinci's workshop. For 6 years, she'd lived this double life. The notebooks detailed not just her artistic journey but her observations of Leonardo's methods, her own innovations in perspective and light, and most remarkably, her contributions to some of the master's most famous works. "Listen to this," Elena told her assembled team on the third night. She read aloud. "Today, the master struggled with the smile. He has painted it and repainted it 20 times, never satisfied. I suggested he paint not what he sees, but what he feels, the mystery behind the expression. He stared at me for so long I feared my disguise had failed. Then he smiled himself and returned to his canvas. I believe he finally understands. She helped create the Mona Lisa's smile," breathed James. But the most extraordinary entry came near the end of the final notebook. Caterina wrote about the day her secret was discovered, not by Leonardo, but by his other apprentices. Fearing exposure would ruin not just her own life but bring scandal to Leonardo's workshop, she'd made a devastating choice. "I have painted my self-portrait," she wrote, "the only proof I existed as I truly was. I painted it for myself, to remember that I was real. Tomorrow, I will leave Florence forever. I will marry as my father wishes and become what society demands. But tonight, I bury this chest with everything I created, everything I learned, everything I was. Perhaps someday, when the world is ready to believe a woman could paint beside a master, someone will find it. Until then, let Marco di Marco vanish as if he never existed. Only these pages will know the truth." The final page contained a single painting, a self-portrait of Caterina, not as Marco, but as herself. The skill was extraordinary, the technique revolutionary for its time. But what struck Elena most was the expression in Caterina's painted eyes, Defiant, brilliant, undefeated despite everything. 3 months later, Elena stood in a packed lecture hall at the Uffizi Gallery in Florence. Behind her, projected on a massive screen, was Caterina's self-portrait. In climate-controlled cases around the room were the notebooks, open to pages showing her techniques, her observations, her genius. For centuries, Elena told the audience, we believed that Renaissance art was created exclusively by men. We told ourselves that women of that era weren't capable of such innovation. But the truth, as we now know, is that we simply weren't looking in the right places. She gestured to the portrait. Caterina di Marco buried her secret because the world of 1503 wasn't ready for it. But she buried it with hope that someday, someone would find it. That someday, the world would change. Elena smiled at the young girls sitting in the front row, their eyes wide with wonder. That day is today. And her secret, our secret now, is that genius has no gender. It never did. In the silence that